Hi guys, Desiree here. In this edition of Cake Conversation, me and Jillian discuss the much opinionated topic of box versus scratch baking. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think, and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss another conversation. See you inside.
So guys, welcome my co-host for the last few weeks, Jillian of Jillian's Luxe Cakes. We are going to have a magnificent conversation today, guys. You know, all the conversations that me and Jillian have are conversations that we have amongst ourselves, but not only amongst ourselves, but it's conversations that we feel that everybody have amongst themselves in the cake industry. And we talk about it amongst ourselves, but we don't talk about it a lot publicly, and we don't talk about it transparently. So this conversation today, I'm excited to have with Jillian. I'm always excited to have conversations with Jillian because we have such meaningful conversations. So guys, if you know people in the cake industry, invite them into the room, invite them in to take part in the conversations. Drop your comments below, your opinions below. We are welcome that you guys are here. And today we are going to be talking about cake baking, scratch baking versus box baking. So that is a very big topic and a very, I feel, emotional and opinionated topic in the cake industry. And a lot of times, I think we don't know how to approach each other with the conversation, and we get so opinionated with the conversation that it almost gets to a point where it comes across judgmental when you're talking about it. So guys, we just want to first let you guys know too that this is not a judgmental conversation. This is just an open, honest conversation.
I'm being judgmental.
No, Jillian, no. But I tell you one thing. When this conversation is over, you will feel informed.
Yes.
You may look at it differently once we discuss the conversation. So, and then me and Jillian, we're going to be transparent about how we look at things and how we do things as well. So, Jillian, why do you think this is such a emotional topic for bakers and treat makers?
I think it's such an emotional topic because people always need to feel like they are right or they are better. I feel like people they go a little bit too far and take things too personally. And it's almost, well, if you don't do what I do, then you are trying to take away my credibility. And it's like, it's not that deep. You do what is best for you. And I'm going to do what's best for me because we all have our reasons why we feel like one is better than the other or something. And it's funny that you said, not a judgmental conversation because everyone makes judgments. You know what I mean? And I think that we hear in the media so often, don't judge, that we don't realize that we judge on a regular basis every single day. When you go to the grocery store and you choose to buy chicken instead of fish, you have made a judgment. So when you decide to, do box cake instead of scratch or scratch instead of box, you've made a judgment, and that's okay. You have the right to do that in that circumstance. Now, where the judgment is not okay is when you're condemning someone else for their decision. They can do that if they want to. It doesn't make them any less of a baker, any less of a person. It doesn't make you any better of a person or any less of a person for the decision that you've made. And I think that people, they take it personally as if someone is, trying to offend them by saying, oh, you should not do box cakes, or, oh, I don't have time for scratch, and, whatever. It's like either way, it's kind of like people just take it too seriously. To each his own or her own. Do what's best for you. And it just shouldn't be what someone else is doing in their kitchen. As long as it's in accordance with the law and it's cleanly, it shouldn't matter to you. And if it cakes taste good, it shouldn't matter to you.
And you know what? And I'm going to tell you my personal opinion as to why people sometimes get into this judgmental things from the baking from scratch, baking cakes from scratch perspective. So my mom's side of the family has a Southern background. And so I grew up with all kinds of baking going on around me. My mother is known for sweet potato pies. Like nobody else in my family touched sweet potato pies. It's like disrespect to my mother to suggest making potato pies for the holidays. You know,
Yeah.
grew up with my grandmother's sisters, all baking something. I remember my Aunt Mary, which my mom's named after, making lemon meringue pies. I remember my Aunt Nora doing peach cobblers. My sister, my oldest sister, Debbie, I do not touch bread pudding. She is the bread pudding queen in our family. Like, I had her, she's mailed me bread pudding for my birthday once, you know. So I grew up with that. I also grew up with my mother knowing how to doctor the mess out of a box cake.
Yeah.
So I grew up with both. But I think when people say, I'm a scratch baker, I think somehow they give off the impression that maybe I got some extra love in my cake that maybe you didn't put in yours. Because when you think about baking from scratch, there's times where we traditionally baked from scratch, and it was holidays, you know, funerals, all type of stuff that evoke emotions and that kind of stuff. So it gives off the false impression that you got something in your cake that someone who baked from a box don't have in their cake. Like, I gave an extra 3 hours, you know, to baking my cake. You know, I measured and poured flour, you know. And so it gives off an impression that you're doing something a little extra in your cake than someone who's baking from a box cake mix perspective, which is false, which is wrong. Because at the end of the day, we're all putting love into what we're doing. I can tell you now, if I'm upset, I can't bake from either one if I wanted to. Something's going to be off somewhere. I may forget I even got the cake in the oven because I may be so overwhelmed with something else, you know. So I think from that perspective, the whole notion of that air of feeling like I'm doing something better than the box cake person because I'm doing it from scratch is something that's just stuck in the mind of how much it's like what they would call a labor of love. But there's also the business side of baking that people don't consider when you bake a cake. And when you bake a cake from a business perspective with a business mindset, and not that I'm doing all this labor of love stuff, or I may be putting something in my cake that you're not putting in your cake because I'm baking from scratch perspective, then you miss the ballpark altogether, because that business side of stuff is a whole nother component that goes into how you're baking. And me and you had this conversation when we were talking about baking from scratch. And I will honestly say that, you know, we all know famous bakers, people who are on cake shows and all of that. And I can guarantee you with their big bakeries, their multiple stores, their multiple bakeries, they are not baking from scratch because it doesn't make sense economically and business wise. Once you reach a certain level and you want to elevate yourself business wise to a certain level, that baking from scratch goes out the window. Like, I know my recipe for vanilla cake by heart. In my mind, I could just boop, 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 and 2.2. That's on a certain scale. Now, you start talking about mixers that are the size of half of a room. You start talking about spitting out 50 to 60 cakes in a showcase a day, plus having these thousands of dollars of cakes that these big bakers are producing and selling to celebrities and all of that. They don't have a 1 cup measuring cup. I can guarantee you they are not doing that. So as a business, you have to think about, okay, where do I want to go with my business? You know, what are my goals as a business? Yeah, I may start off baking from scratch, but if I really want to have a storefront bakery and make a certain amount of money, is it wise for me to continue to bake from scratch? You know, what are your business goals? If you just want to be a local mom and pop type shop, bake locally for your community and serve just the people in your community, yeah. But if you got goals that extend past your neighborhood, you're not going to bake from scratch the rest of your life. At least That's my perspective. What do you think, Jillian?
I think it depends. It depends on the bakery, and it depends on the volume. It depends on the caliber or quality of product that they're providing. I have seen that there are bakeries, or maybe not bakeries necessarily, but there are some like cake designers that have, like, let's say, their own studio. And perhaps all they're doing is making, you know, custom cakes, and they do make their cakes from scratch. But in order to do that, you have to have the proper equipment. You have to have the staffing. And their prices are going to be on the higher end because you have to be able to pay your staff and pay for all of that equipment. In order to be able to produce that. So I do know that there are some commercial bakeries that they do. There are also full service bakeries that they're making pastries and croissants and things like that. They're making them completely from scratch. So there was a bakery that well, one of the bakeries that I worked at in the past, they had a separate warehouse. And so there were some things that, most of their things, I believe they were making from scratch, but then there were other things that they were not making from scratch. So it really just, it depends on what makes most sense for that bakery. What I can tell you is there are a lot of bakeries, okay? And when I was in culinary school, I felt that it was an absolute abomination for a professional to make anything from the box or anything pre-mixed. That is genuinely how I felt. And my chefs, I had 2 baking and pastry chefs that they were like, listen, I get that's how you feel right now, but in the real world, out in the field, that is not how it goes. There are a lot of bakeries that advertise from scratch baking, and they do not make anything from scratch. So that is my perspective. I think that there are some that do it, but there are some who advertise and they market as if that's what they do, but it's really not what they do. And then there are other bakeries that, you know, it's just never really, honestly, I don't think I know I've worked in bakeries. The average customer is not walking in asking, is this from the box or is this from scratch? They're not. Like, it's they come in, they eat with their eyes, they're looking at what looks delicious, and then once they fall in love with something, they're a client forever. And they will probably, if at the very least, they'll probably automatically assume, based on how things taste, that everything is from scratch.
Yes.
And I've seen that before too. You know, clients come in and they swear that it was from scratch, and they have no idea whether it was or it wasn't. So it really, it depends. And I think that all of the above is out there. It's just a matter of, what do you feel works best for you? What's most important for your business? What's going to, you know, appeal to your clients the most? How do you work, and how is it going to best suit you in the environment that you have set in your kitchen? It really depends. It depends. And then what tastes the best? What tastes the best?
And everybody's tastes are different as far as what kinds of cakes they like. You know, some people like a more dense cake. Some people like a more area cake. And I just want a person to say, shout out to all the bakers out there who can make a tres leche cake stackable.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. I have not.
Because all the tres leche cakes I have been like wet. And I've had somebody ask me one time, they wanted a 3-tier cake and they wanted like tres leche. And I was like, no. That's like too much saturated milk for me.
Yeah. No. I mean, I once made a banana cake, and banana cakes are so soft. Well, at least the way we made it, it was so soft and it was so moist, and it was the bottom tier of a cake. OMG, that cake. But by the time the client picked it up and walked to their car, it fell apart, completely fell apart. And we had to scramble to make another cake for the party. So yeah, some of these cakes, they just don't work as tiered cakes.
Yeah.
Total,
like
that's another conversation too,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Absolutely. And I think too, when it comes to like, if you think about it like economic wise, you know, it is way much cheaper money wise to do a cake from the box. I mean, like if you're talking, you know what, on a small scale of the majority of home bakers who don't have like the storefront and stuff, a box of Duncan Hines or what's another one?
Oh, if it's on sale, right? If it's on sale, maybe.
Like what? Sometimes you can get them $1 a box of cakes. When you think about the ability to make a cake and only having paid $1 for that mix, and all you putting in it is eggs and oil, you know, well, you're probably doctoring it, so you're adding a little bit more, but it still, I think, comes out to being cheaper than the ingredients for a scratch cake. So you can get away with boxes of Duncan Hines that altogether total might have cost you maybe $6, $5 to make if you're home.
Tres leches is the devil. That's what Tiff Sweet says.
What did she say? I can't even see it.
Leche is the devil.
Yes, it is.
Hi, April.
Welcome, ladies. Welcome. Yes.
Listen,
but I love Tres.
About the which one is cheaper. I think it really depends. I think, like you said, it depends on the volume that you're pushing out, because I will say this: if you're buying a 50-pound bag of flour, right, or even 25-pound bag of flour, and then you convert the measurements down, when you price out the measurements, when you convert the measurements and then you price it out, sometimes you're spending maybe 25 cents for a pound of flour, or because you're using your chances are you're using less, like depending on how many batches you're making or whatever it is. So you could be spending like less than $1, or whatever it is, for each ingredient. I think usually when I price out my ingredients, usually I come up to about somewhere between 25 and 33 cents per egg, depending on the price of eggs at the moment. Sugar is usually very inexpensive. Sugar is probably like maybe 10 cents or so, or like this is like per ounce or per pound or something. I cannot recall. But when I have priced out my ingredients, it really and truly it depends.
But see, you know what? Also too, that's just pricing out your ingredients. You're not pricing that's before you add your time.
Yes.
Of measuring all that stuff out too. That's because you open that little bag up and just dump it. That's like boom.
Yeah, you're right. You are right. You are very right. Listen, when it comes to your time, it is much more cost effective to make a box. Absolutely. Nerva said, "Hi, Nerva." She said, "I am not a baker, but I can help you ladies settle this debate with some generous." I think she meant samples.
Samples.
I got you one of these fine days. I have a freezer full of cake that I got to throw a lot of cake away, because I always end up with extra cake, and I am the type of person, even though like cake will last in the freezer for like a year or more. Yeah. I can't do it though. I have to bake it fresh every time, so I end up with a lot of cake. And I was thinking at one point that I should, like sell big bags of cake to like, treat makers that are making cake pops and things like that. Great deal. You give me $5 for cake.
I was gonna say they're great for cake sickles.
What you said, right?
I said they're great for cake sickles and stuff too, because that's what I use them for. Yeah, I use them for cake sickles.
I don't make cake sickles. I don't make any of the treats. Like I'll do pastries, and I'll do certain desserts, but I hate cake pops with all of my heart, my life, and my soul. So I do not do cake pops. I do not do cake sickles. I do not do anything where cake is mushed into anything. So yeah, but anyway, back to the conversation.
Yes. So I also this is my transparency. So when it comes to baking, myself and in my business, I bake all my cakes from scratch. When it comes to doing cupcakes, I don't always do them from scratch. I will do cupcakes from box and just doctor it because of the time speed, and I'm focusing more on the decoration with it. And so that's how I bake. I use either leftover cake or box cake if I'm making like cake sickles to have to mush up the cake and all of that. So, but all my regular cakes are baked. I do them all from scratch, but I do the cupcakes and cake sickles from box. That's just more of a quick convenience for me. I just doctor them for the cupcakes.
Yeah. And I totally get that too, because it's not like how we discussed before. It's just not, it's not cost effective, or it's not worth the time in some cases. And my apologies to any client that is, you know, listening that might take that offensively when you say, oh, it's not worth your time. It's right. No, but it's like if you get an order for cupcakes, it's for 20, let's say 24 cupcakes, let's say 2 dozen. It's not cost effective. It is not like worth the amount of time that it's going to take just to make those cupcakes. Like that, it just is not beneficial, which is why also another conversation for another day, which is why I have an order minimum. And I think most bakers do have an order minimum, because you have to determine what is it worth for you to have to, you know, stop what you're doing, take time from your family, or take time from whatever it is that you're doing in order to, you know, make a cupcake order. Like the time it's going to take you to make that cupcake order, you could, you're going to spend the same amount of time in the kitchen baking as you would making a 2-tier cake. Like, yeah. Because you can fit, as long as you can fit all of this in your oven at one time, one go round, or you can make, you know, however many batches at one time in your 1 or 2 or 3 mixers that you have. Like, you have to consider whether it's worth it or not. And for cupcakes, I just don't feel like that is truly worth it, which is why cupcakes are not like really my specialty. Like, I really try to get my clients to understand that custom cakes are what I specialize in. That is what I'm going to really take the time to make. If you're ordering cupcakes alongside that, or if you're ordering a whole lot of cupcakes, then yeah, that works. But if it's just like a little bit of cupcakes, I see and I totally understand why you would say, you know, to make that, the time that's extra time it's going to take to bake those from scratch, and then just for a small cupcake order, it's not really beneficial for you, because you have to think when you're baking, it costs you money. It's costing you electricity and gas. It's costing you, if you pay, you know, water pollution or whatever it is in your area, depending on if you own a home or not, you know, you have to pay for all of these utilities while you're in the kitchen. That's, you know, hand soap that you're using every time you have to wash your hands. That's dish detergent. That is, you know, paper towels, which are ridiculous, because I can go through a whole roll of paper towels by myself in the kitchen, you know, while I'm making one cake, because I'm washing my hands and having to clean up so often and different things like that, you know? So you have to think about that. Even if it's a small order, you still have to do these same things, no matter how small that order is. So it's really like, what you want to do is make sure that it's going to cost you the least amount of money to produce. So I get that. Totally understand. Yeah. I would like 3 bushes and then some to get that small point, but you guys get the point, right?
No, it's a very valid point. A very valid point. It's true. It's and that's the thing about thinking from a business mindset, because, you know, when like you said before, when you have this huge team of people that you're working with, it's easy to delegate doing cupcakes to somebody else, or, you know, all those other things. Okay, you work on this, I'll work on that, you know. But when you're the person that's doing everything in your business, so you're the person who's going to do that cake, who's going to do those cupcakes, who's going to do all those other treats, going to make those toppers, you're going to do, you start thinking of how to use your time more wisely, right, and effectively to produce a product, a satisfactory product, but to also have some time left for yourself. The other aspects of your business you have to work on, because as business owners, we're not just baking. You know, we're doing graphics, we're doing posts, you know, we're doing all these things for advertisement. Yep. We're on several social media sites. We're doing all those things initially ourselves, you know. So you're everything in the business before you actually get to the point where you hire a team or you can get people to do other stuff. You know, I've gotten to the point where I said last year that I'm going to delegate stuff to people that just not my forte, you know. I remember one time trying to do a landing page. I can do landing pages faster now, but it took me, I think, maybe 2 weeks. I was working on a landing page. Now, time, like they always say, time is money. That's 2 weeks that I could have been working on advertising and marketing rather than trying to get that landing page done. Like, this is 2 weeks of me not even having no place to capture the client. You know, so I said, you know, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to try to do all of that when it's not necessary for me to do all of that anymore, you know. And so I delegate certain things now rather than frustrate myself. But as business owners, we have to think of what's effective for our time, what days we're going to do what in our business, how we're going to order and structure things, whether or not we're going to do an order from scratch or whether or not that is going to be delegated to bots or whatever. And that's what I found for myself, that cupcakes wasn't worth me measuring out and doing from scratch because it was too much. It was too time consuming. Now I have, if I'm doing certain kinds of cupcakes, like I was telling you about the cupcake I have, the sweet potato cupcake that I named after my mom, that's a scratch cupcake. But if I'm not doing something specific where I've sat down and tinkered and messed around with recipes or something like that, I don't have the time to do that. I'd rather do the focus on the designing the toppers. Yeah. For the cupcakes rather than that actual baking process with it.
Now that brings to that ties into my perspective and my situation and what I do. This is probably going to be like the realest reason for one or the other, like ever. So, like I told you guys before, when I graduated from culinary school, first of all, it's like if you're spending all of that money, and I think that this has something to do with why people get offended, is because something personal, whether you've invested money in learning that's going to school, or whether you invested time in the kitchen and you grew up, making things from scratch and you have an emotional attachment. I get that there are reasons why people feel like that is the holy grail. I was totally one of those people, and I felt like, oh no. You're a professional and you're making something from the box. Like, you ought to be ashamed. I literally said that out of my mouth in an interview that I had with a bakery. And then, they were like, well, wait a minute. Up learning from that experience. Okay. So while I was working at this bakery, I was baking there. And we primarily made, cupcakes and, other types of, desserts. But at home, I was still making custom cakes and I was still producing custom cakes. So I was learning two different methods I was learning at the same time, which I'm so grateful for, because I was able to really understand on both sides of the fence what works, what doesn't work. And so it allowed me to have a little bit of a difference in perspective. Okay. So on one hand, I felt like it was an abomination. So when I was at home, I literally, like, everything I made it from scratch. Okay. So fillings and cakes, I made them all from scratch. But then, some people would complain, well, this recipe here. Okay. So my chef, to backtrack a bit, my chef gave us like this little booklet. And this booklet, he owned like a cake studio of his own. And so he had compiled for us like tried and true recipes that he had used and that in his, 20 plus years in the industry worked very well for him. And he specialized in wedding cakes. I was using his recipes. However, I started to like, maybe I would leave simple syrup out on this one here because I didn't really have the time to produce that cake. And then or maybe I forgot the simple syrup or something like that. Nonetheless, you know, it was good enough. The cake would be good enough for this client over here, but then this client is talking about how dry the cake is. Or this client is saying that they didn't like it because it tastes a little eggy. And then, you know, it's like different people had different opinions. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, you know, when we, because Pillsbury, last week I said Duncan Hines, but it's not them. Pillsbury actually makes 50-pound bags of cake mix. And I'm like, no, and in all of my years of eating cake, no one has ever complained about Pillsbury or Duncan Hines or any. And then on the other hand, I would see customers who swore that a cake was made from scratch. And I'm looking at them like,
no, it's not.
I made that. I know that that's not from scratch. But the client couldn't tell the difference. They had no idea. To them, it was just a delicious cake. And so I realized, and I said, oh, okay, well, let me go ahead on to the other side then, because A, it's faster for me to do it that way. I don't have to make simple syrup, or I don't have to make something in order to saturate the cake and, you know, cover up the eggy flavor or whatever it is. Like, there's some steps that I can skip here, right? So I said, okay, I can do that. And then I thought about it too, and I'm like, well, what is a box cake really and truly? All a box cake is pre-mixed cake. So instead of you mixing all of the ingredients yourself, someone else mixed the ingredients for you. And they they're using their recipe. And most of us are using other people's recipes anyway. So it's still someone else's recipe. It's just that they mixed all of the dry ingredients and you're not. That's the only difference. Oh, well, that, and it has preservatives in it. Those are the only two main differences. That's it. So you could literally at home and you can make your own pre-mixed cakes. I know a baker who does that. He and I following one another since I started baking. His name is B the Baker, and he is dope, well-seasoned baker. And when it comes to like he makes his red velvet from scratch. So what he does, and I don't even know all of his cakes, if he makes all of them from scratch or not, I don't know. But I know I've seen him post where he like just has like a day where he mixes all his red velvets and he mixes a batch and he puts them in Ziploc bags. And when he's ready to grab them, he grabs them.
Yeah, I do that. It is such a good time use of time, because I've done that with my vanilla mix, and I put them in those large Ziploc bags as well, because it's easy. I know exactly how much is going to make a 8-inch pan. If I use 2 of them, how much is going to fill the pan, and it kills so much time doing that. I mean, and you pretty much put everything in there. You do it just, and baking soda, powder, whatever.
Yeah, all you then have to do after that is just, you know, pour it into your bowl, or, you know, you cream your butter, depending on how your recipe goes. You cream your butter, add your sugar later, or add your sugar with your butter, and then you have, you know, your leavener, your flour, your salt, or whatever inside your bag. But, you know, all of the measuring has already been done for you. Like, that's basically what box cake is. If you want to break it down to, you know, its bare minimum, that's what it is. So does it really matter? In terms of the preservatives, yes, that does matter. If you want to make sure that your cakes are as organic as possible, or you want to make sure that you're using the best ingredients as possible, yeah, absolutely. But other than that, do I care if you mix that cake at your house or I mixed it at my house? I could care less. I don't care. I want to get this cake made. Now, one thing that you guys are going to learn about Jillian today is that Jillian does not like baking. I don't like baking. So the other plus for me is that by using and I don't use all box cake mixes. There are some cakes that are from scratch, and there are some cakes that I make as box cakes, because again, like I said, no one complains about those recipes. No one had, and I've literally been in I have been in consultations with clients, and I'm open about that. Like, I'm not hiding what I do, because
I don't think most of them care. I don't think most clients care, you know. Like, well, and I've had instances where I've done cakes, and the older people will be the ones that be like, "Oh, this cake is good," because they're older. Older people are used to more so scratch baking and stuff from, but nowadays I don't think people really care. No one cares that you did it from scratch, or they only care really about is the taste and presentation. That's really is it. No one's asking, like you said earlier, no one's asking me, "Oh, did you bake that from scratch?" And I did have one time I met with it was like several clients at one time, and well, they were all together, but they were all asking me different things, and I can tell it was like good vibes from some of them and negative vibes from some of them, like, and I had one of them, well, what day do you bake your cake and how fresh is the cake? And I'm like, you go to Stop and Shop, is you asking Stop and Shop when they bake their cake? Like, what are you doing? Come on now. Either you want the product or you don't. But that's the time all my red flags go up, and I'm like, I don't even want to bake a cake for you, because now this is going to be a whole nother negative comeback afterwards. But, well, what day do you bake it? And what day? No, I don't bake a cake and decorate it the same day.
Right.
Cause, and clearly those are questions from people who really don't know baking, because that's another conversation me and you had.
Or they're a baker.
No, because if they're a baker, honestly, they would know that what the other day that we talked about has to come out of a cake, the air. If not, your fondant is going to bubble. Sometimes even your bubble cream will bubble if the air didn't properly come out of the cake. So I am not a same day. You can't get a last minute cake out of me. So it's not like, oh, I need that cake for tomorrow. No.
Right. Absolutely.
Before I can level it and all that, it has to settle. It's just like a house. After years, it settles, And
right.
Cake does, but that's a whole topic too.
So basically, usually the client is not concerned. It's who are, judging one another based on what they do or do, but the client only cares if their cake tastes good. I want my cake to be delicious, and I want my cake to be beautiful. That is what they're concerned with. They don't care about all the rest of the extraness. They just don't.
They really don't.
Me, once I found, they really don't know. And as I was saying before, I would have, wedding cake consultations with clients, and we're doing a cake tasting, and I'm telling them, oh, this cake is from scratch. This one is not from scratch. And they're like, this is not from scratch. And I'm like, no, this is not from scratch.
It's just knowing how to doctor it.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, because usually you can't. All you care about is if the cake is delicious or not. You don't care. So now this is what I will say. All of my fillings are from scratch. I have tried non-scratch fillings, but for me personally, I feel more comfortable and I prefer the taste of scratch-made fillings. That's how I feel. To me, the cake is the canvas, and you paint the cake and you make the cake beautiful, and you really enhance the cake by the fillings that you put in it and the flavor that you're adding. Now, that does not apply to like a red velvet. Red velvet has a distinct flavor of its own. And so that's why you use a cream cheese filling, because that's, it complements. You don't want to have too much going on both sides. Carrot cake, thing. Carrot cake already has tremendous flavor. And so cakes like that have a lot of flavor, those are the cakes that you're going to be making from scratch, because there's first of all, any box cake of red velvet that I have seen, it looks a hot mess. Like, just the color is off. And then it tastes like a red chocolate cake. It smells like a red chocolate cake. Let me say that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the thing with box red velvet is it's the, for everyone who's not a baker that may be listening, there is chocolate in a red velvet. If you put too much, your ratio of cocoa, when you put too much cocoa, that's when you get that darker red velvet and you get more of a chocolatey taste, but it's not supposed to be a chocolate cake. It's supposed to just have a little bit of cocoa in it. And Mary Butler said, flavor has to develop over at least a day. Same day cake doesn't taste the same.
Listen, you better preach, Mary Butler's granddaughter. You better
And I'm
preach.
something else that I've learned by trial and error. Now, Jillian was transparent that she doesn't like to bake. Here's my transparency. I don't even really like to eat cake. And I'm not a sweets person. I'm a food person. So I'll go to a restaurant and I order half the menu. I don't care if I'm by myself or I'm with an entourage. But sweets, I can't understand how people eat like a 4-course meal and be like, oh, I'll have dessert with I'm like, oh, like, why you want to eat sugar now? You just ate all this good food. But there are times where I will have a taste for cake, and usually it's a rich cake. Like I'll have a taste for like a carrot cake or a hummingbird cake. It has to be like a rich cake for me to have a taste for it, a coconut or something really filling. But for me just to have like a taste for, I want a slice of vanilla cake or a slice of chocolate cake, I usually don't have those type of taste buds. But yeah, certain things out of the box is just like, ew, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Carrot cake, carrot cake. I don't like grocery store carrot cakes. I don't like box carrot cakes. No, carrot cake has absolutely it has to be from scratch. Has to.
Yes.
Yeah. That's that situation right there.
And I'm gonna tell you something. The baker, when it sort of fits into the conversation of box from scratch. So because I do the cakes from scratch, when people ask me for certain type of cake flavors, the first thing I think of is, why do you want that in a tiered cake? Like, and I think that's the savory, rich Southern baking part of me. That's like, why do you want a tiered carrot cake? Like, get that as a regular 8-inch slap with all these nuts and raisins and stuff in it, like cream cheese frosted. Like, that ain't supposed to be tiered. So certain cakes, I'm like, no, just get vanilla chocolate, some plain, please.
I love a carrot cake in a nice aluminum pan. Okay. Bake that in some ugly aluminum pans that you get from the grocery store. Put a little bit of cream cheese. I can eat it without the cream cheese, frosting on it. Just give me a fresh baked, scratch made carrot cake, and we are good to go.
Yes. And I was going to say earlier too, one of my things is too, when we were talking about no-nos for cakes, when she was talking about the cakes when we were talking about the selling for the day, and it was mentioned that they have to take a day for the flavor to come in good. I've also made the mistake of having leftover cakes and eating them too warm, because you can't really taste it then either. Like, the cake has to cool off.
Yeah, it has to be.
If it's too warm, it's like you don't even know what you're tasting. You're just eating the cake to be eating the cake.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not really a sweets person myself, and honestly, initially I would mostly like taste the fillings of the cakes that I made, but because that's what I'm making from scratch, so I got to make sure that my fillings are right. But if I know, even when I was baking from scratch, and even now when I'm making red velvet cake or carrot cake or whatever it is, a lot of times I don't taste the cake or I don't taste the batter or whatever it is. But then there would be times, oh my goodness, where I'm starving, I've been working all day, and then I start munching on the scraps, and I'm like, listen, this is everything.
That's the time when I eat cake, where I haven't eaten anything. That top leveled off part, when you level the cake, oh.
Yes. Oh my. But yeah, I honestly though, the baking portion, I bake as a means to an end. And I have been, like, over the past year, I've been teaching my daughter how to bake. So a lot of the cakes that I have been making, and I've been telling my clients, because they're like, oh, it was good or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't make that. My daughter made that. So kudos to her, because she's the baker. And she's actually, in my opinion, she's a better baker than I am. She's still.
Yeah. And I want to say kudos to her too, because I ate some of the shooters that she made for that wedding I attended.
So for
and
that,
each flavor.
I made the pink Moscato. She made those. The pistachio, she made those. The only thing that I made was the red velvet. Oh, I made red velvet, and I made the sweet potato cake. But other than that,
mad I didn't even know that you had made the cupcakes, so I would have grabbed one of those too.
Yeah, yes.
I thought they just ordered them from. I said I thought they were supermarket cupcakes. I was like, no, I'm gonna get these shooters.
No.
Oh, I would have been sitting there tasting everything.
So I am not the, the one who's trying to be in the kitchen baking. No, I'm trying to get in, get out, and get to the part that I love, which is the decorating part. That's where my heart is at. And that's what I want to spend the majority of my time doing. So I don't, if you ask me, I'm going to choose, as long as it tastes good at the end, I'm going to choose the easiest route. So the pre-mixed cake is the route that I'm going to go. However, this is now the different perspective, which also makes it really real, is that where I would like my business to go, like the brand, the brand of luxury that I want to put forward, I have to really consider, does making pre-mixed cakes fit into, my aspirations as a brand? Like, am I shortchanging my clients? I'm like back and forth about that, because part of me still feels like, well, as long as the cake tastes good and they love the taste of it and they're happy with that, then it doesn't really matter. But then on the other hand, as far as like my integrity is concerned, and the prices that, like, I feel like it's okay for me to take that extra time in order to, and then I feel like I can do more. I can develop more recipes. I can come up with more things if I decide to go scratch completely and only do, scratch made things. So I'm kind of in between, and I'm really moving more towards going scratch only in the future, because I feel like when you have a luxury brand, part of the luxury or part of the luxe, in the experience is, taking that time to develop, a cake that is beautiful on the palate. You know what I mean? Taking time to make sure that the flavors really complement one another. And you know what I mean? Taking that extra time. I feel like that's the difference, is like, when you do luxury, the time is required. That's a requirement. People are paying for that. So I think I think that's kind of, you're going into a different realm there than if, you're just making, and I mean, both cakes are going to be beautiful. I don't think that you should be selling cakes that don't look amazing. They should look amazing. But I think when you start going into, like, the luxury side of things, it's not just about the taste and the look. Now we're also talking about the experience that you're giving to the client. The experience matters. And to me, I'm a huge believer that my experience in the kitchen is going to affect the experience that my client is going to have eating that cake. That's something that's subconscious that people don't realize and people don't know. And me, as a Christian, I pray all up and through that cake. Okay. I'm praying for the event. I'm praying. Yes. I'm praying for the baby that's on the way. I'm praying for whatever it is. So I take it seriously that, if someone is having their day sucks or their week sucked, that moment that they tasted this cake, that it was bliss for them, even if it's that small. So to me, it's about the experience of what I'm giving to the client, as well as, the look and the flavor also. So again, that's why I say it depends on you, and it depends on your goal for your business. It depends on how you work. Because let's say you are doing luxury cakes, but you're not the best baker. Like, someone will pay you. There are people who will pay $1,000 for a cake only for show. Okay.
Yeah.
There are people that exist that will do that. Money is not
more than $1,000. They will pay more. They are some celebrity cakes. They be off $5,000, $10,000.
Yes. Now,
and the celebrities are cutting one little piece, biting one little sliver, and it's like, really, it was just, that's it. It was a show,
Yes.
It really is.
And, they slice up the cake, and then the majority of the people, they get up in there, they're on the dance floor by the time the cake comes out anyway. So no one's eating the cake. You know what I mean? So people will do that. They don't really, some people genuinely don't even care about anything except for how it looks. I literally had a client, and I made this cake for her from scratch because she wanted a lemon poppy seed cake. And so I literally had to try this recipe like 2 or 3 times because I felt like it was so dense, which it was. And I felt like it was too dense, but I tried more than one recipe, and it was just too, because I had never made it before. I let the client know I had never made this type of cake before. She wanted the cake. So I was like, okay, no problem. She ended up loving the cake, and she said that the cake was perfect, which, oh my gosh, I was so relieved. However, she spent all that money on the cake, and she did not even cut the cake at her party. She cut it the next day when there was no one around.
So even enjoy the cake with her. Yeah.
Some people, they are really like this. You can't assume that you know every customer. I think that what you need to do is focus on what makes your business work. Focus on how you work best, and then when you have figured that out, you would then find the clients who like your style and what you do, and they're gonna come to you. You're gonna end up getting those clients, or people or whatever the case may be. But I think that you just really need to pay attention to yourself. And actually, the point that I was starting to make is, you know, if you do, there are some people who may do luxury, and you have clients like that they don't even care about how the cake tastes or whatever it is. So it's still fine. It's perfectly fine for you to make a box cake. You don't have to feel the way I feel, to where, oh, well, if I'm giving a luxury experience, I have to make a scratch made cake. No, it's about how you feel. Yes, she want that cake all to herself. She did. And she
continue to pop in and join us. Thank you. But you know, Jillian, you made a real excellent point when you talked about the whole branding part, because that's the part of what we do that people don't really focus on as an individual. As a customer, you're thinking about what particularly you want. I want to look like this. You know, some people at these parties, their baby showers, they're going to cut their cakes. So, hi, Royal Mecca. Hey, sis. So they're focused on certain things, but you have to, like you said, get yourself to a point where you decide, how do you want your brand to move forward? And what do you want your brand to represent? And like you said, with the luxury thing, a total experience? You know, you're getting a total experience of, yes, aesthetic wise, I'm looking at this cake and I'm like, wow, this cake is beautiful. I want to be known for that. But also when you cut that cake and taste that cake, I want it to not just be the average tasting cake, not just be like, oh, this cake is good, it's okay, it's good, you know, but for you to be like, oh, wow, did you taste that cake? Type experience as well. And that's something that you have to position yourself business wise and decide what your goal is for that business, you know, and for your business, and what you want the experience for people to take away. Because I could tell you too, if you've been a box baker and say like your entire baking career, you started off baking from Duncan Hines or one of them, and on throughout the process, you know, you've just done that, and then you decide to branch off into something different. Let me try to do a homemade one or something. And if you've never done that before, that is going to be a shock to your clients. You're going to be like, wait, this cake tastes different from all the other cakes I've got before. You know, either the texture, something about it, because that's not what you've built yourself up to be known for. But that's where that transparency comes in.
You need to be consistent. They're paying attention.
Yeah, you absolutely do, because people get to know you for your products. They expect that product, you know, and as you branch off and develop into other things, and there's going to be times too where your whole clientele is going to change because of your growth and your direction as to where you want your business to grow. So right now you may be serving this population and this community, and they may be used to this. And then as you branch off to doing other things, that may be a different clientele of people that now, you know, I am doing this here. And now I'm focused on doing this here. Some people are going to fall off. Some people are going to be added on, you know. So it's all about where you want to go personally with your cake business. Yes, not only does the cake look extraordinary, it tastes amazing. Yes, that's exactly what the experience is that we want everyone to have. And I guess to really sum things up, like, you know, get yourself, if you're in the baking community, get yourself to a point where you don't become so opinionated on how someone else is choosing to bake for their business based on how you're baking for your business. Everyone has their own path. Everyone has their own goals in their business as to where they're trying to go and what they're trying to do. And ultimately, you don't have to choose a team. You know, people are like, I'm team from scratch. I'm team box. No, I'm team progress.
I'm team good. Does it taste good?
Thank you. I'm team taste good. I'm team look good. I'm team elevate my business.
Yeah.
So bottom line, that's the goal. Are you elevating your business? Because you can make a certain amount of money baking from scratch and turn around and make the same set of money baking from box. It's all about what your goals are for your business, how much money you want to make in your business, and what direction you see fit for your brand in your business. Not so much jumping on these bandwagons of I only bake from scratch or I'm team box. You know, be team progress and support each other in this community. That's what we need to be. Team progress and support each other in this community. That's what we need to be. Not team judgmental. There's enough money going around for all of us to make, whether you pulling the flour off the shelf or the box mix off the shelf at the store. It does not matter. So, guys, we hope
to go with what you just said about you know, be team supportive, you know, team progress and be team support one another. I literally I was talking to a client last night, and the client was saying, you know, well, you know, I looked at a lot of different bakers and I felt that you were the best one. And I was like, you know what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to open this cake school and get these things started so that that's not the case. So that I can work with people who are local to where we're,
right.
You know what I mean? Like in our area, we're covered. In our area, for every client that is looking for a cake and they want something that's beautiful, you have a whole slew of bakers that you can choose from. And
I said it before, there's so much talent here.
Yeah, change that whole mindset of competition.
Yes.
Yeah, and just, you know, tearing each other down. Some, like, I'm you know, seeing, I have this coach, an amazing coach, amazing group, community that comes along with, you know, her coaching program. And oh my God, I totally lost my train of thought real quick. What was I just saying? We were talking about
being not tearing each other down.
Yes, not tearing each other down. It was something specific that I was gonna say though. I'll just keep talking and it'll come back to me. But yeah, like, we don't need to tear each other down. And I have this coach. What was I going to say about the daggone coach? Maybe I just don't need to say it. Whatever. Move on. So in our community, I feel like we just have so many people that can do a lot of beautiful and amazing work. Like, that's what I'm trying to see. That's what I want to help cultivate, so that here everybody's taken care of. No one has to worry about, you know, and not only even having, not about, you know, nobody has to worry, but like, we build each other up to where, well, you know, I don't want this particular type of cake. Like, you make a beautiful cake like this, right? You make beautiful, sophisticated type cakes, right? But what I'm looking for is a 3D type cake. So then there's someone over here that makes amazing 3D cakes. There's someone here that makes, you know, really great, like, you know, kids cakes. You, Desiree, make amazing and beautiful kids cakes. I don't love kids cakes so much. I like cakes that maybe they're for kids, but they have more of a sophisticated look to them. You know, average kids cake. You know, someone over here that makes more cartoony looking cakes. But in every single, like, area, these people are like a beast at what they do.
Yes. And I've seen that with a lot of cake people. I've seen that with several cake people. I don't remember where I saw this young lady, but she does cakes. And I don't think she's in Connecticut though. But I had saw some of her work, and on her page, she had a couple of tiered cakes, a couple of stuff where she was doing where they asked her to do some sculpting and carving, and she was just starting out, and she was a beginner. But as a beginner, I already saw that her forte is sculpted cakes. She was a beast at doing the sculpted stuff. The other stuff was okay. She still has some development, but you can see her talent was going to be sculpting cakes, like the faces and all of that. So everyone does have like a place that they gravitate to doing cakes, or they may get most of their requested cakes from. Your cakes are definitely on the elegant side, the mature, older, you know, just pure elegance. And to tell you the truth, I think the baddest cake was one of the baddest cakes, but for me it's the baddest cake because it just shows a lot of your creativity. The baddest cake I saw that you did was the cake that was all acrylic.
Oh, really?
Yes, and you know why? Because your talent came out in that acrylic cake. Like, you can see that you like the decorative parts of that cake. And when I tell you just how you place the flowers and everything going around that acrylic cake, you didn't need a cake.
Yeah.
It was like, that was art. That was art going around it. And I was like, now this cake is bad. This is bad.
What's so funny about that is I had so many people that were like, how do you cut it? I was like, are you serious? It's not cake. It's basically a dessert stand that looks like a cake, but it's not a cake. Oh my God.
I would love to see that cake.
You do
it's
that.
On her page.
I was like, listen, I can't make an invisible cake. Like, invisible cakes don't exist, and it's for a reason. Like, it's and then one of my friends like, Jillian, if anybody was able to make an invisible cake, it would be you. And I'm like, no, it would not. I'm so confident, but no, it would not be. Like,
that was so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tiff Sweets and Treats said I was blown away by that cake. Yes, it's beautiful.
And if
it really
anybody wants to do it, I'm not selfish. I don't think that I feel like we just really need to be supportive and build a supportive community. I think that's what I was going to say. Something in that realm that I was going to say in regard to that coach, or something that she said in regards to something dealing with community. But I think it's so important for us to have a community and to share information. And, you know, yes. With that being said, if any of you guys want to, you know, make an acrylic cake, I could tell you where I bought stuff from, how I did it, whatever. Like, I'm totally okay with doing that. Because I feel like it's ridiculous. Like, oh, I was going to say something about people being in these Facebook groups. Oh, that's what I was going to say about my coach. She tries to get us to, like, you know, there's strategy to going into cake groups and sharing information and all that good stuff. There's totally strategy to that. And I get it. It's helpful for business. But these cake groups, oh, they just drain me so bad sometimes and grieve my spirit because of the way people talk to people. The way that
very judgmental.
What are you doing? For what? Yeah. Like, and then the crazy thing to me is, and that's why sometimes I think that it's not even really real people who are doing this. I think sometimes it's bots, or it's like computer programming, or like, you know, that are created to troll. I feel like sometimes it's like that because they have a specific, like, it's like a certain persona that they have where they just like tearing people down. And it's like, if you disagree, they start to get combative and they start insulting. And it's like, what are we doing that for? For what? And then you go and you look at their page and either they have no cakes on their page or their work is not even that great. And I don't understand. If your work is on point, you still need to be quiet. But if your work is
humbleness, because you were someplace before yourself. All of us began. Listen, I look back at some of my cakes and I'd be like,
right? A hot mess. Oh my God.
Was I thinking?
I first met
and thought I was doing stuff. Oh, girl. Listen, where is the edge? Let alone a sharp edge. It's like you have some cakes and you're like, what in the world? And for anybody who's listening who wants to be in a cake group that don't have all that nonsense going in, go to Facebook and go to Cake Conversations. Find it. It's my cake group. And we're not doing nothing over there but having some positive conversations. So, and please post all your work. You know, show us what you're doing over there. We would love to see it. Love to have conversations, some tips, some help, whatever. That's what we're all about. Helping the sister up, not tearing each other down.
Yes, I have been blessed to, you know, get help along the way. I have been blessed, and I have also reached out to people, and they don't really seem interested to help. What's most funny is I have offered to help people, and it's just like, maybe they just didn't take me seriously. I don't know, but you know, sometimes that's a little discouraging too, when you offer to help and you want to network and you want to build, and people are just like looking at you like you're crazy. And I'm like, why? Hi, Rochelle.
Hi, Shell. Thanks for joining us.
So yeah.
I miss you and Mark terribly.
Yeah.
So tell my friend I said I miss him. Yes, yes. You know, people are funny when it comes to help. And a lot of it too, I think some people aren't used to people offering to help. Exactly. Party Galore just said it. Yeah, they aren't used to people offering a helping hand. They think it comes with a stipulation, like, you know, they're gonna ask me for something, or you know, somewhere around the line. They don't really know that there are genuine people out there who will genuinely help you and who will genuinely lend that hand, you know, and they're not used to it. They aren't.
I think that when you help someone else, it's a give and take from that automatically. Like, you know, this is a situation where we're networking. I can help you, and in turn, I'm getting a wealth of knowledge. I get to see how you run your business, and it gives me ideas for what I can do in my business. If you say, don't use my recipes, absolutely, I won't use your recipes, or you know, the things that I have seen you do. If you don't want me to do it or implement it, absolutely, that's, you know, that's a part of us having respect for one another. But yeah, I'm here to help you. I actually had a friend who, she started making cakes before me, and I went to help her. She felt like, oh, well, because you know, I went to culinary school, that I would be teaching her tips and tricks. Well, the tip and trick that I learned in culinary school is, when I go in your kitchen, I am your employee and I work for you. So whatever you want me to do, I will do. If you want my opinion on something, and I'll absolutely give it. But while I'm on your premises, you tell me what to do, and I'm going to follow your instruction, and I'm going to be of whatever assistance you need me to be in, whatever capacity you need me to do that in. So, you know what I mean? That's just kind of the mindset that I have. I'm going to do whatever it is that you need, because Jenny, and that's without pay. That's even without pay. Right. You need me to help you, I'm going to come and I'm going to help you, because I know how it feels to have needed help and I couldn't get any help. So if someone else is in a situation and I'm available, oh, I'm coming, and I'm going to do whatever you need me to do. Right. Exactly. And you know, and that's all part of being a positive community. Yeah, that's all part of being a positive community. And our community makes up so much of diversity. You know, like, we're not just bakers, we're treat makers, we're event planners, we're commercial spaces where you can hold event spaces, we're balloon you know, decor. We're so many aspects, and to have that community of people that we can rely on. Yeah, you know, I know somebody who can do X, Y, and Z. I can help you. You know, I can give you a referral for that person. Yes. It don't cost me nothing to say, I know somebody that has a rental space you may be able to rent. Yeah, it don't cost me nothing to say, yeah, this person does stationery if you need stationery. This person does acrylic toppers if you need that. This person does balloons, whatever. You know, this is another conversation for another time too, because I've done that with my clients, and I think that clients, or prospective clients that is, and they really appreciate that. There's times when they may reach out and want a cake, and I'm like, you know, I'm not available for this day, but this person, and this person might have some availability. Reach out to them and see. These are people that I respect, and I let them know. This person, I never tasted their cake before. However, I've seen their work. They have a lot of, you know, they have a huge client base. So apparently people do like their work. So, or they like their cakes. So try them. And I even, on my website, I have a resources page on my website, and I have bakers on there. If I'm not available, go to these people. you know? So
That's a great idea.
yeah, and people, clients, they really appreciate that. That will make them, you might think that that will cause them, like you lose them as a client. No, that builds loyalty and that builds trust, because that client will look at you to say, wow, you know what I mean? For you to really do something like that, that makes them trust you and like your character. So,
right. And people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
yes.
They
Yes.
really do.
Oh,
They really do.
You went to my site. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's a great idea. That is an excellent idea. Yeah.
You know, we ourselves, we can't scratch, box, whatever. When a customer, let's say a customer did care whether you made a scratch cake or not. If they're having a situation, or let's say they forgot to order the cake, whatever. When they need a cake, they need a cake. And the last thing that they're about is if it's from scratch or it's not from scratch. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh, I have never had a client ask me that before. Oh, that if the baker that I was referring them to made things from scratch or not. They don't care. I have you know, do you do sugar free? Do you do gluten free? With sugar free is just that's mind blowing to me, because it's like
now. I'm doing sugar free, and I'm going to do vegan.
okay. Listen,
yeah.
Amen. And I've had some good vegan cupcakes before. So yeah, that's totally doable. But like when we start talking about gluten free and sugar free, that's
I don't gluten. I'm not even going.
However, I do know other bakers that are absolutely amazing and dope at that. So I refer them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, just
somebody for everybody.
Say that again.
I said there's somebody for everybody.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
And I think
she says she used to live in CT. That's how she was excited to discover you.
Oh, for real? Oh, I'm gonna inbox you. I'm totally, because I want to know. I always have a lot of questions. I want to know, where are you at right now? Why did you leave CT? I want to know your life story, sis. I want to know why
yes,
you left.
Yes.
Where are you at?
We want to get to know our community. Yes, we want to get to know our cake community.
I think that is so okay, at the heart of the whole conversation about scratch or not scratch, I think that part of that really and truly has to do with your attitude. It has to do with your attitude, your understanding, and whether or not you care about, you know, community and other people. Because okay, let's say that you truly do feel like scratch is the way. Are you trying to like assist people? Are you trying to help people? Are you trying, you know what I'm saying? Are you just criticizing, or are you reaching out to say, you know what?
Right.
I hear you and I understand, but I think these are the reasons why I feel like this would probably be a better route. And here's a recipe. I just want you to try it and taste
Absolutely.
it. You know what I mean? Try it how you like it. Whatever. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with feeling.
Ultimately, we are serving the community. So how really are you serving your community and your fellow baker? You know, there's some people who may be baking from scratch because they're intimidated. I mean, from box, because they're intimidated by baking from scratch. They may be afraid to try to measure out these ingredients. I'm gonna tell you, one of the baking flops I had was one year I decided to do pumpkin bread. It was my first time making pumpkin bread. And I didn't understand the mixing. I didn't understand the importance. Even though now, the more that I bake from scratch, I know you can tweak certain ingredients in the baking process. But back then, I should not have tried to tweak anything. I put, it calls for a certain amount of baking soda. And I was like, this is not enough baking soda. I don't know. And I decided to put some extra. When I tell you, when I finished with that pumpkin bread, my mother was laughing so bad because the whole house smelled all good and everything. It smelled the cinnamon and stuff. One bite and all you taste was baking soda. It just tastes like pure baking soda. Because I decided to put extra because I didn't think it was enough. So I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. My mother was laughing so bad. And so I decided cause I done made like 4 loaves of it, and I'm like, well, I don't want to really throw it away. Like, you know, maybe I'll just break it up in crumbs and put it out for like the birds or something. My mother told me, you don't throw that bread in the garbage. She's like, you're gonna burst those little poor birds' belly with all that baking soda.
Yeah.
So I ended up throwing it away. But for that reason alone, you know, you may have people that may be intimidated by that. And yeah, how are you really serving people? Are you willing to tell somebody, here's a tried and trusted recipe you could use, you know, to get you started? Here's some tips you could use for baking to get you started. Those are some things that I had even said that on Tuesdays I was going to start doing in the Cake Conversation group. Is I'm giving out some real genuine good baking tips every Tuesday over there, because I feel like it'll help people along their journey, you know, and it'll help people be in a place or find a place. I want people to have a place where they feel comfortable asking questions, because, you know, I've been some cake groups and people ask questions and they just get no reply. Like, long as you're complimenting the person on their work and what they're doing, oh, that's beautiful, this, that, and the third. Soon as you ask them, do you mind telling me where you got this from? Or do you mind telling me what did you use for that? It's like crickets, you know? So really, as bakers and treat makers and people in this community, how are we serving each other? And how are we, as well as our clients, how are we serving our fellow person in this industry as well? So that's something for everyone to consider too. And, you know, guys, I just want to thank you all for joining us. This has been such a meaningful and enriching conversation. Thanks for everybody who joined. Thanks to everybody who stuck around, popped in and out. Thanks to everyone who's going to watch this on the replays. Please, if you have any comments, don't hesitate to message me or Jillian. Give us you know, I don't do orders in the DM, but you can DM me for a conversation. Absolutely. So guys, it's been real. It's been fabulous. We love it. Next week, we're coming back to talk about another touching conversation, and that conversation is baking with a license versus baking without the license. So join us next week, Wednesday, for another meaningful and hopefully encouraging and educational conversation to you guys. You got anything to say before we go, Jillian?
The last thing that I guess I would say is I understand totally about being intimidated because I told you I'm very intimidated by Jamaican rum cake, Jamaican black cake. Super that. Desiree knows how to make it. I love rum cake. I have family members that make it. I have always been super, super intimidated, but I said this year I'm gonna stop being a punk and I'm gonna learn. It's true. And I think just in closing, like, be considerate. Like, how you feel is fine. It's okay. And even if I am a person of very strong opinions. I have very strong opinions and I have very strong convictions about things. It's fine. It's okay if you do, but just be considerate and mindful. And even if you're in a cake group and you see someone is dogging someone else, you know, chime in and speak up, because it's a lot of the nonsense that goes on. Like, why can't we have a conversation that doesn't get heated about cake? It's cake.
Right.
Serious.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times the admins, they miss a lot of stuff because they get so busy. They're not really even paying attention to a lot of the conversations in the groups, you know. So a lot of that's in their head.
Usually it's happening in the larger groups, but it's like it's just really not that deep. Like, if you feel that strongly about it, reach out to that person on the side or even in the group. Just, you know, add positivity in the comments or whatever it is, because oh my gosh, sometimes I hate cake groups because of the stupid stuff that people say. And it's like, what is the matter with you? And then you just destroyed someone who is genuinely looking for information or whatever it is. Like,
yeah, it's true. It's true.
Have a mind and a heart that is geared towards building up a community of people. Because at the end of the day, everywhere you are, it is beneficial. Even if you don't live in the same state that I live in, if we're all on the same accord that cake should not be cheap, that's going to be beneficial to all of us, no matter what state we're in. And like, for example, Asante, she said, hey, I don't live in Connecticut anymore. But when she moves to another state, if she's still making cakes, I bet you that her prices are still going to be very similar to what they were while she was in Connecticut. And so that then builds up the value of the other bakers and other people that are in her area, because we're on social media. So she could have people that live in this new area that watched her, followed her, and want to order cakes from her. And they're willing to spend whatever amount of money that she's charging. And you know what I'm saying? That now benefits your industry and your area. So, you know what I mean? Like, we can be really closed-minded. Let's not be that way. Let's like really just be open to seeing other people's opinions. It's never going to do you a disservice to just chill and listen to what someone else has to say. It's not that serious.
Absolutely.
So I'm team both. I'm team taste good. I don't care if it's scratch. I don't care if it's, you know, box. I don't care. Whatever. As long as it tastes good, as long as it's clean, I will eat it.
Whatever works for your business.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. See us back here next Wednesday, 12 noon, for our next topic. Licensed versus unlicensed baking. We're happy that you joined us. Team Let Them Eat Cake. Exactly, Ashati. Exactly. That's a great face. So thank you guys. Thanks for joining us. Everybody, go back, watch the replays from the beginning. It was a great conversation. As usual, I love talking to Jillian. And we'll probably be talking for hours after this on the phone as well. But thank you guys for joining us. See you next week.
Bye.